welcome to the YouTube exclusive of the Foreign Report.
It's YouTube exclusive on YouTube. Exclusive.
We're gonna put this on Rumble as well. No, I'm just kidding. Just YouTube.
Can't wait for our Rumble reviews. Start rolling in.
Travis, can you bring in our guest for today on our exclusive YouTube exclusive?
Yes, absolutely. We just had her on our usual Foreign Report podcast, and she's fantastic. She's a New York-based comedian known for her podcast, Guys We Fit, and Without a Country, her political podcast. She was also briefly a candidate for mayor of New York City, which is what we're going to talk about right now, because foreign policy is domestic policy, and everything starts at the municipal level. So please, everyone, give a warm YouTube exclusive welcome to Corinne Fisher.
Comments.
Hello.
Comments, likes, smash, subscribe.
I want to thank you for saying briefly too. That was good. That
Well,
was a good
you got to put it in context, but we are going to get to it.
You gotta let people know.
Yeah. So you ran for mayor
of New York City, and I actually do. I can kind of lead into this because
Please.
I have a documentary about running for mayor of my hometown, Bexley, Ohio. A documentary called American Mayor. It is available on Vimeo. And I say that because
talk about our guest.
I'm leading to it, sir.
This is related.
This is related because it's on Vimeo, and every time someone buys it on Vimeo, I get an email.
Okay.
That says someone bought your dumb movie.
All right.
And I'm like, ooh. And this was about like January, February. And then I see Corinne Fisher, who I know from the New York comedy world, announces running for mayor of New York City. And I think you did a post about getting video editor help. And I was like, I responded, I'd be very interested. Here's my email. Hit me up. And then Corinne responds with, I just watched your documentary about running for mayor. And how did it influence you, or how did it maybe impact you and things to not do? Don't have white guy dreadlocks, don't have a beard, things like that. How did this all, this has been percolating for a while for you, right?
Well, so it was because I like to go on Instagram story too freely and make proclamations. And so I very boldly, before the presidential election in November, I very boldly said, if Donald Trump wins again, I am going to run for some kind of office. I didn't specify what, nor did I have mayor specifically in my mind. But that was like a threat I made. I don't even know that I was wearing a shirt. Like I was in my bed. Like I went back and looked at it. And I go, I was sober, but I wasn't.
Right.
But I was just like, this is like a threat I made, because in my head, I guess I was like, nah, I think that Kamala will probably take it. And then she definitely didn't. And I was like, well, I don't want to be one of these, liberals who says, if Trump wins again, I'm moving to Canada, and then doesn't do it, as we all know they wouldn't. So right. I was like, well, I said that I was going to run for office. And it also, running for office in general and having younger people and people without a history in politics or a family in politics run for office was something we had been discussing for a while on Without a Country. Not for me to do it. I was trying to use my platform and, money that I have saved from not getting married or having children on candidates, basically. Like that was my thing. I wanted to highlight and uplift, preferably like a younger female candidate who wanted to run for some kind of local office in her town. Yes. And I said it week after week, and absolutely no one seemed interested. And so at a certain point, I was like, we do have to start running for something. And I go, why? Like, I'm going to just take a shot at this and see. Because liberals keep telling each other, you have to run for office. Yeah. You have to run for office. And I was like, do you really mean this? Like at the end of the day, or after I announced that I was running for mayor, I think they meant like, oh, you have to run for like PTA president or something.
Right.
Like I really didn't, like, mayor didn't seem crazy to me, and still doesn't seem crazy to me, especially with the success of Zohran Mamdani. It was completely not a crazy thing to do if you've lived in a space for a long time, and especially with the kind of following I had, doing something like mayor where you can fundraise from across the country. Like if I'm running for any other office, like a city council, I'm not going to be able to fundraise the amount of money that I raised nationally. Like people are just not going to be invested enough for me to get the money I need with the following I have. You have to look at who is going to give you money and figure out what kind of person they would be interested in. And I was like, mayor, honestly, I think is the lowest I would be able to fundraise with the following I have. And that's, that was kind of part of my thought process. And also you're thinking like, what position is open, or is the incumbent not doing the job that they're supposed to? Because I'm certainly not trying to unseat a Democrat doing a good job.
Right.
But Eric Adams was famously doing a bad job.
Yeah.
I think most people didn't even know that he was mayor until he did such a bad job that people started using his full name regularly in conversation.
Right. Yeah, that's what Jimmy Kimmel said, is like Eric Adams made Bill de Blasio look good somehow.
Yes.
For New Yorkers.
What was the hardest part in the beginning? Was it getting everything set up? Was it figuring out the fundraising? What was the biggest challenge for you?
Getting everything set up was, because you're just starting with the pieces that you can afford in the beginning, because, it doesn't matter how much money you personally have. You can only invest X amount personally. Like my cap for the primary was, I believe, it was like $6,000 basically. So even if I maxed out my contribution, which I did in the beginning, you can't, until you start fundraising, you can't spend over $6,000, or whatever the amount that you have at the time is. So I just started putting the pieces together. I lucked out that my comedy partner's manager's brother is a political advisor. And so we started out, that was one of the main pieces. And we started from there and worked out with people that he had known. Well, one of the main problems is that New York, as all my advisors told me, is the hardest place to run for office, like even harder than Washington, D.C. on a local level.
Yes.
It's super cutthroat. And even if you can afford certain advisors or lawyers, they won't work with you unless they think that you really have a chance, or if you have some kind of political cachet. And so I didn't have those things. So even though I could afford certain people, they refused to work with me because they were like, well, we don't want to piss off whoever actually is going to win the election. So I had to outsource. I had team in Texas, in Portland, in New Jersey, just all working for me, who were great people. But, they purposely make things tricky that if you're working with anyone who is not specifically familiar with the statutes in New York City, and they do differ from state to state, that you're going to get yourself in a pickle, because and it's on purpose.
Right. Well, and then that reminds me of the signature requirements, right? That was a huge thing because media-wise, you're media savvy, you're a comedian. Like you said, Charlamagne the God endorsed you. I remember seeing that clip.
Which I did not pay for, and nor did I ask him, nor did I know what was happening. And I was so annoyed because people were like, oh man, Charlamagne must really need money. I go, that was just as much as, literally people were DMing me being like, go to this timestamp on, it was Brilliant Idiots, I guess that was. And I was like, I did not know that was happening. So please do not badmouth Shar. I love Shar.
Yeah. Oh no, it was organic. Well. I mean, I remember he's literally reading your platform, and he's like, "This is who I'm endorsing." Yeah. It's like, cool.
What was your platform? Can you give us
give us a highlight?
I mean, basically it was, cost of living, which should have been any Democrat's platform, and for the most part was lowering the cost of living, making New York City more accessible. I'm like, you can go to CorinneFisher.com right now. I actually didn't even switch it over because I love my page so much, even though I definitely have to put it back to comedy. So it's cost of living, public safety, because those were the two things that New Yorkers really were worried about. And then for me, this is something that I don't think a lot of other candidates highlighted, which was unique to my campaign, but it was public education. So it was raising public school teachers' salaries, an emphasis on critical thinking for students, and then creating an opportunity for students in New York City to succeed, regardless of their socioeconomic status.
Because, look at this radical agenda. No wonder you didn't win.
Right, they were terrified.
Extremism.
Yeah.
when we talk a lot, I mean, and then there was also a large focus on arts. And I had my signature program was this thing where you would basically get tax breaks of some sort that we were going to figure out for volunteering, which is, capitalism meets philanthropy, because, it's basically free work for the city, but it's also giving people economic relief and getting them more engaged and community oriented, which is, I mean, especially after visiting Japan, something that America is sorely lacking.
Yeah.
We don't care for, we don't get out and give a crap about each other. But the public school thing specifically was interesting to me because I'm public school educated. I lived in New Jersey until I was 17. And so a lot of people crap on New Jersey, but we consistently have one of the top 10. Right now, we're ranking number 1 in some polls, public education system in the country.
Yeah.
So I know what possibilities are available for a public education system. On top of that, my mom is a public school teacher and has been for many years. So it's something I felt very familiar with, and something that is like basically the foundation of success for anybody. Like no matter where you start financially, if you start with the proper education, you can really succeed. And we just didn't see that happening in New York City. And furthermore, it's something that the mayor is actually in charge of. A lot of people were presenting policy that I'm like, good luck. The mayor's not in charge of that. That's going to ultimately turn into a fight with Kathy Hochul in Albany. And I think it's weird to run on something that you may or may not end up having power over. And but this to me was a tangible policy that I could actually get done and would have an impact on New Yorkers and future New Yorkers. You want to be basically not just putting bandages on problems now, but starting when people are young so that the future is very bright for New York City.
I love this. I'm also seeing here that you wanted to ensure congestion pricing revenue went to MTA upgrades, which is huge.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because people were mad eventually and mad at the start of that because no one can afford anything extra and we keep getting hit with these extra fees. But I didn't want to revolt against it from the jump. I wanted to see how it panned out. And then surely, enough, a couple months later, drivers were like, actually, I'm saving so much time. It is worth the money. And people had more, parking available to them. And so I was like, okay, well, let's keep it then. But let's just make sure this money is not being funneled into whatever the higher ups want it funneled into, which is what so often happens. Let's make sure it's going back into this public transportation quality of life as it was promised initially.
Yeah. So this obviously would have been a winning campaign. Let's get back to the cutthroat part of New York City politics, the labyrinth, the maze that is New York City politics. I remember getting on Instagram, talking about how it all started with Instagram. It felt like it ended on Instagram. I got on Instagram and saw you had a post about how the campaign was coming to an end. Could you please explain to folks what happened and how maybe they can avoid similar fates with their own campaigns?
I would love to explain to you how to avoid it. I mean, I think being vocal and transparent every step of the way about what your process is like the best way to at least have receipts, as people like to say. How to stop it, I can't exactly guarantee because this is what I talk about when with having a New Jersey election lawyer instead of a New York lawyer. So from the very beginning, I was advised you've got to have an election lawyer if someone challenges you, and make sure to retain that election lawyer before you get challenged, so that you always have them. So I had interviewed lawyers. No one legitimate in New York City would work with me. It was just not on the table. It was it was almost like a political faux pas for me to be asking. It seemed there was one New York based guy who literally met with me in some kind of it looked like a WeWork, but not even as nice. And he had a pile of tissues in front of him and he was sneezing the whole time and then was just talking over me and my political advisor. And I was like, surely we can't go with this guy. And he was also asking for an exorbitant amount of money, which I would have been willing to pay had he seemed reputable or kind or not misogynistic. So I went with this other lawyer that was recommended to me, who is cool, but again, more familiar with New Jersey election law. And we did everything by the books. But what happens is they don't like give you a template for, how to hand in your signatures, which have to include a cover sheet. They give you statutes, which you then have to have a lawyer interpret line by line. And so my campaign literally came to an end, not because I didn't get enough signatures. We got more than enough signatures, and it was so hard. And we hired so many team members, so many volunteers. Like, we worked tirelessly and to the buzzer to get those signatures. But we got those signatures, and unlike other candidates, Eric Adams, we got real signatures from real New Yorkers.
Right.
I would bet a lot of money that, like, if you went line by line and checked those were all valid signatures from actual registered Democrats in New York City. But when we handed them in, there was one line that had not the number that they meant us to have on the cover sheet. Like, basically, the number should have been 1 because it was 1 volume. We interpreted it or my team interpreted it as how many signature pages per stapled volume we had. Like, the story isn't even interesting to tell because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's a technicality, basically.
Well, and then my follow-up question would be, like, why does a line even exist for a candidate? Because we're all handing in 1 volume because that's the required volume. So the answer for everyone's would be 1. Why does the line exist? Period. Hard stop.
Right. No,
right?
yeah.
And so then furthermore, this is what's called a curable defect, right? So there are incurable defects, and then there are curable defects when you hand in your petition signatures. This is what should be, is or categorized as a curable defect, something that they can give us back and we can fix and we can resubmit and not be knocked off the ballot.
Right.
But they are supposed to contact you. It says number 1 by email. If you provide an email address, email should be the first thing they try. They did not email us. And then they mailed it to us, but it went to my campaign manager's apartment. New York City, my campaign manager is not Andrew Cuomo's campaign manager. He doesn't live in a building with a doorman, and it's just like a regular mailbox in a wall. It's delivered by, I guess it was USPS, but some kind of like, mail where you're not putting it in the mailbox. It's too big for the mailbox. So we never received this mail, which is very curious because we received a different piece of mail about a different curable defect, but one that didn't matter because we did end up fixing that. But even if we hadn't received that one, we had enough volumes that one could, like, that signature chunk of signature pages, it was like 200 signatures, could have been completely thrown out and it wouldn't have affected the campaign at all because we got way more signatures than we needed. And so I'm like, number 1, why did these incurable defect notices come on different pieces of paper? You should have reviewed everything at once, and that made no sense. And 2, how come the one that took the campaign down was mysteriously never received? There was no record of it. So literally the first knowledge of me getting kicked off the ballot I had was when a journalist from Politico texted me.
Wow.
Hey, are you off the ballot?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
So it almost got leaked to the media before it got leaked to your own campaign.
Well, because a lot of these local journalists, like, I really want to be pro-journalist. I got to say my experience in the New York City mayoral race did not make me love journalists. These were people who were basically salivating at my impending downfall. They couldn't wait to see me fail. They were so excited, like almost mocking me in interviews. But I was just like, I know you're like, listen, I'm me. I was voted most unique in my high school. I have no problem with people mocking me to my face while I really try to make a play for what I believe in. So it didn't bother me. And I was just like getting people on the phone any way I could and giving them my 15-minute spiel about my platform. And so I had, I think I had charmed my way into the hearts of a couple people who were like, yeah, I think this B is crazy, but I'm going to keep following her campaign to see if this turns into anything. Yeah. And mind you, if you look at any articles from January and certainly anything from 2024, people were also calling Zoran Mamdani crazy.
Yeah.
So,
oh wow,
look who's laughing now.
Yes.
I mean, they were mocking him. They were saying there's no chance that he's gonna win. He has no experience. He's just like been a lowly assemblyman. He's a nepo baby. He has, he has.
Which
he's
we really
way too
lowered
far
the bar
left.
on nepo babies, by the way.
Right.
It's like just a film director. She's had a few movies.
Well, she's Mira is pretty famous.
She's pretty famous, but like she's not. It's not James Cameron's kid.
Right.
This
sure.
is not like
No,
you know what I mean. This is
not,
like.
and I think it's a twofold too, because his dad's also a pretty prominent activist. So it's like a twofold thing.
Yeah.
And it's more so than like reach. It's like also just coming from money, which I am biased against.
Sure.
I'm like, that is, it's just, it sets you up to be ahead. But also, like, if you were born into money, what are you supposed to do? Not do anything?
Yeah.
Right.
Not exist in the world? I mean, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, Cuomo's no nepo baby at all. Of course.
No,
God.
nothing there.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad
the nepo babiest of them all.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did it, and I mean, honestly, I hope you're very proud of everything that you accomplished with it. I certainly hope you run again for anything, whether it's New Jersey or New York or I don't know, pick another place. Run in Ohio. They let Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance run there, and they did very well. And Lord knows those guys don't care about that place at all. So thank you for standing up for the community you cared about, Corinne. I hope you're very, very proud of that
of course. Just two people who ran for mayor right here,
Absolutely. And I will say, even if you don't win, your issues, sometimes that's, as you know from my documentary, I saved my neighborhood, I saved my parents' house, and I was just at the No Kings protest in my hometown the other week, and my mayor came up and said hello to me.
I love it.
So sometimes,
that's so cool.
Yeah, so even, if you don't win, you become friends with the people who do win, and then you get your agenda
and it's
through.
About staying involved. Yeah. So
yes.
As soon as I conceded, I just ended up working on this a sexual assault bill that many people didn't even know existed in New York. So I immediately started working because I was like, this was not some kind of a publicity stunt. It would be the worst publicity stunt of all time. Like number one, it just aggravates people that you even try anything new. And it really it aggravated a lot of male comedians that I had the gall basically to run. And then it just depletes your funds because I stopped doing stand-up because I wanted people to know that I was not doing this as a publicity stunt. And I invested my own money in my campaign, obviously. So it was just months of me not making money and then spending money on the campaign and, being exhausted in the process. So if you're looking to run for office for a publicity stunt, I would say not the move. But if you are doing it because you give a crap, then yes, it is the move. I encourage you to do it. I learned so much. It was probably the most valuable experience of my life so far.
Awesome.
And you're pretty confident that Mamdani is going to take the mayoral race now? Is that your?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this since probably. I mean, literally, I don't see any world that there's anything that could happen that unless he himself knocks down a building, in New York City. I told him, I was like, there's nothing he can do. He's winning.
Yeah.
I think even if they can convince Curtis Sliwa, which I don't think is going to happen, to not run, I still don't think he can win. His polling is insane. This is I've lived in New York City for 22 years. This is the most excited I've ever seen people about a municipal election ever.
That's awesome.
He changed the game. He was on the cover of Time magazine. That's a whole other conversation because I'm like, okay, well, he didn't win anything yet. But but I mean, he is now going to be the template for how Democrats run their campaigns. I mean, he changed the game. That being said, I think the challenge for him is once he wins, he better deliver. Otherwise, he's now causing a problem for everybody else who wants to run, who, wants to promise change. You need to deliver on that change. Otherwise, no one's going to trust a new candidate from now on.
I think some of these things are going to be tough. I mean, the rent stabilization thing seems like it's going to be a really tall order. I think the busing seems like he could definitely do the busing, right? I mean, that's through the MTA. That's like the state thing, right?
Well, that's the problem with like his bus promise. That was the main problem, is that the mayor doesn't have control over the MTA, and the MTA is a privately selected board. So you're going to have to just really be charming people in Albany to get that done. It seems like if the Democrats want to win, they should support him. And I think people are finally figuring that out. But yeah, we can't have people being stubborn or thinking that they know better, you know, Hakeem Jeffries, you know,
right.
refusing to endorse.
And then photoshopping a photo of himself. I used to live right by him, but I know the park that he was at. He photoshopped it. Anyways, Corinne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is great.
This is amazing. Check out her podcast, Without a Country, Guys We Ficked. And she'll also be doing a Guys We Ficked live in New York City at the New York Comedy Festival on Friday, November 14th at Crown Heights Theater in Brooklyn. Thank you so much, Corinne.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Make sure to vote in your local elections.
Vote.
Let's go.